filming by candlelight this morning. Been sitting here journaling and thinking things through. I recently experienced just a super annoying disappointment about something. And it came at a time when I was also having certain physical struggles and certain emotional struggles as well. So I was conflating all these things, and the other day, sitting in all those feels, very intense feels, I drew a tarot card from the Marigold Tarot. Let me put my coffee down somewhere. And I got, in various iterations actually throughout the day, asking variations of this question, continuing to tease it out. I got this card a couple of different times. The Eight of Wands. I think at least once it came up reversed, but the other times it was upright, and ultimately it's exploring different angles to the same question. What I'm dealing with here is an idea and a physical reality, and wanting to amalgamate those things, bring those things together, combine them, and move forward with them. To get this card, a sort of, especially in the context of this deck, working towards something swiftly that bears fruit. So from inception or conception to fruition, there's a very, very swift development. I had certain things in place for this idea that I was formulating that I'm realizing I can actually put into action now rather quickly. It makes this card very appropriate. The discussion of the reversal of this card in the book also talks about, specifically with reference to the swiftly blossoming fruit here, and the sort of branching structure and so on. It talks about when something feels like it's messy and falling apart, and therefore needing to take a bit of time to reevaluate and understand the concept you're working towards, or the manner in which a project is started. The project I'm referring to right now basically is that I want to make a pair of shoes. I've been planning to do this for a little while now, but you know, wasn't sure when it felt like quite right to begin. And the other day something fell through and I decided now is the time to begin. Redirect that super frustrated, pent-up energy towards something that would actually be fun and engaging and would fulfill the same need. So I'll talk about some of how I'm going to approach that in a second, but I'm also going to quickly draw a card from my Oracle Medieval et Merveilleux, the Medieval and Marvelous Oracle. In part because it echoes the color scheme of the Marigold Tarot, and seemingly the color scheme that is my jam at the moment. Very black and gold and black and ochre and everything. But also because I think this oracle will help from a design perspective with what I'm kind of working on. So the question I'm asking this oracle deck right now, it's going to be hard for me to put it into proper grammar and syntax and so on. I normally am really neurodivergent about how I formulate these things in my head. Let me think. Okay, so the way I formulated this in my head just now to the deck was the phrase, talk to me about depth and significance, especially of things like tradition. And I mean that in a way that interfaces in a healthy manner with modern innovation and current realities, living standards, and so on, current lived realities. So talk to me about the significance and value of tradition, especially traditional skill and labor and activities, as that amalgamates with modern current lived experiences. Okay. Foyer or foyer. I really like the intergenerational component being presented here. The home, hearth, craft, food, storytelling, the passing on of knowledge, the healthy organic, a representation of a healthy organic family environment, communication, some age diversity. But also what I like about it is that there's an element of tradition and craft in this that has pretty much exclusively a functional nature in all of its parts. And this is something that often occupies my headspace, is what am I formulating the ambition and desire to achieve? And how does that serve a functional purpose? You know, those of us with a flair for drama, glitter, magic, beautiful things, prettiness, all my little pretty lovelies, we can get really carried away effectively. You know, this is the, I can't see it. We can get really carried away with that sense of desire, passion, ambition, that grandiosity. And something that I feel is extremely exquisite and magical is when I can properly blend that with something that serves a purpose and is actually what the original thing was for. Like if we take a really quintessential example, a cauldron even, right? Like a real one. You know, this is a cauldron mug that in some ways I guess is gimmicky, but super, super fun, and it's serving a purpose. Yes, it's a coffee mug. But obviously an original cauldron is just genuinely a cooking pot, so that from a modern lived experience, your modern cauldron is, say, a saucepan, you know, something along those lines. I find that's a really sort of alchemical, fun, interesting place to dwell. So let me read the poem for that card. I used translation software, by the way, to translate this. So for those of you who actually speak French, you're very lucky. I do not, as I think is abundantly obvious on this platform. Oh my God, why can't I find my spot here? Okay. Of course, me being me, I bound my own translation in a little homemade book that fits in the box. At the heart of the home, all are united and reunited. Fire is the fertile element that binds them. The grandmother offers the child stories. All celebrate the sacred beauty of life. Time is ticking away in daily tasks. The father sees to it that the evening is succeeded by a morning. The mother, weaving the threads, weaves their common destiny, and the youngest child sleeps serenely. Divinatory message. Cradle, citadel, and cosmos, such is the home of the members of the same family. It says unity. To its primordial magic you must give in, and remember that every task is sacred. So for me, what I love about that is it does remind one of what one is trying to achieve, including in buying presents and even when those presents get really, really disappointing. Or fall through or whatever. So, yeah, let's see if I'm able to work on that with this and apply these lessons as I go about this process. So, a quick rundown of what I'm hoping to achieve here today. Yesterday, I checked with some actual pairs of shoes of mine and so on, and also with my actual foot, drawings of my actual sole. I checked some of the measurements of my shoe lasts here. I got these secondhand online. They are a pointed toe. I believe this pair of shoe lasts are from the 70s. So they're a pointed toe, and what that does mean is that I actually need them to be slightly longer. And actually, if you look, you can see that whoever owned these in the past did actually shave them down a bit. So I need today to widen certain parts of the foot and add a little bit of length at the back. I'll show you my drawings in a second. And I also need to head into town to talk to, I think there might be there's a leatherworking shop, a belt shop in Cork City Centre that may sell leather, and I'm just gonna ask them if they do. And I also need to talk to my local cobbler who resoles my shoes whenever they wear out, which is all the time in Cork because the footpaths are fucked. I need to talk to him to see if he will sell me either some rubber for the soles once I'm done with the shoes, and or whether he will be willing to re-rubberize the soles periodically for me if I make these myself. That plus getting some strong thread and a few other bits and bobs are going to be my task today. So quick rundown of the drawings, because I don't really need a huge amount of light for this. Here is my preliminary foot sole. This has no seam allowance, and it's really more to kind of illustrate some of the differences where I'm going to be adding specifically to the last. Most likely I'll either use some form of putty if I can make it removable, or I'll use wrapped fabric and some leather covering. And then here is my basic first attempt shoe mock-up paper pattern that I've come up with for this. And here is my sole pattern and outsole pattern. I don't know if you can see on the paper, but these are called talukat, which I think I might have actually misspelled here, I'm not sure. But basically that is a Finnish kind of, a kind of quilted shoe from often wool fabrics, but also just basically whatever scrap wools and fabrics you have. A quilted shoe that peasantry and people in various forms of impoverished and or labor circumstances would have made in the home in Finland, traditionally, in the absence of normal leather shoes, especially for winter. They're a kind of quilted winter boot. So that's kind of what I'm currently aiming for. And part of the point in choosing these is not only that the entire point is to use what mostly material I have to hand, but the other part of this is that I have a burgeoning interest in practical applications of clothing that is meant for activity and active lifestyles, and the sort of techniques that go into that and bringing those forward and finding the research process of that really interesting and rewarding as well. So links will be in the description. I may or may not explain this kind of thing a bit further. I will certainly share some of the resources, including videos that have informed and are going to inform the making process of these. So here's hoping. Got a bit more flames going now. Look at it! Ooh! That's better.
Yeah, it would.
Quick update, because I'm low on battery. I have quilted one of the shoes. You can see there's some wobbliness towards the back here, especially right there, which I am hoping to be able to avoid as much as possible in the next shoe. But to be honest, I don't think it's a deal breaker. What fascinates me is this is the other shoe. It has yet to be turned inside out and ironed, or rather turned right side out and ironed. So this is the inside, basting stitches, clipped seams so that they fold along the curve, and so on and so forth. I need to clip the seams at the front of the shoe as well. And you can see anyway how totally floppy and so on it is, which to be honest would probably work depending on the type of shoes and the function you were looking for. But what I'm finding so interesting and so magical is how the quilting process lends stiffness and structure to the garment. This is something that we see in certain medieval garments, such as the medieval, I believe it's called gambuchon, which is a form of armor that is made denser, and like you take a lot of material and make it quite dense, and it functions as body armor. This is seen in corsetry as well, to some extent with things like cording and whatnot, is that it adds structure and stiffness. So it's just really interesting to me how much more sort of an actual substance this has, such that it keeps the shape just through, and I probably need to dust this a bit, but just through the act of quilting. Now, I still don't know if these shoes are going to turn out or remain functional or what. This is very much a donning the shoes of the fool kind of scenario, but I am so excited, and I'm finding the process itself so much fun and so crafty and so magical. To take one-dimensional scraps of fabric and turn them into these like three-dimensional foot-shaped things feels so, I suppose it does feel time travel-y, but in a way that renders it usable from a modern perspective that allows for so much personal interpretation and creativity, and those things being important for their usual reasons, but also because they are, in my opinion, part of how sustainability or learning how to be more sustainable will end up proving to be more sustainable, is that we get to find all of the ways in which that will work for each individual, and that each individual has creative possibility within that. I'm so excited, and it feels so magical to just craft away in the middle of winter on a pair of winter boots and watch them take shape before you with like the ongoing, ever-turning wheel of the machine. It's just wonderful.
Cuig me coneni kisil me ma vo cuig ponti argedas ar gwynifri or ma hol man targedas ma fran man tor o cadishin loch manin shindo ma hol man targedas ma fran man tor o cadishin loch manin shindo. Go coil crowd look up joke a snare and look no abandoli do ye got no bucalopo Mahin of shalura free crowny in a so O cadishin lontation knock winning shingo Mahin of shalura free crowny in a so O cadishin lontation knock winning shingo Aim shakwe garland is rain guy sport again up the rossi got renewed and sword Abindina sugak is my vein suga glow O cadishin plantation knock winning shindo Abindina sugak is my vein suga glow O cadishin plantation knock winning shindo Sosa machoni grow O cadishin plantation knock winning shindo Ak matamisha sosa machoni grow O cadishin plantation knock winning shindo Ak matamisha sosa machoni grow O cadishin plantation knock winning shindo.
Hello everyone, so I thought I would do a quick check-in before the moment of truth. It is officially Christmas morning, I guess, this morning. We have done a whole bunch of midwinter celebrations. I may or may not show some of that footage in this video. Lots of cooking yesterday. We had our main quote-unquote seasonal meal yesterday. So perhaps it is visible, but I'm very tired today. I did the last step of gluing the leather to the soles of these shoes yesterday. I sourced the leather from my local cobbler. I will hopefully be discussing some of these more local components of my efforts, along with the scrap fabrics and so on, in relation to the cards that I got for this project, both in terms of the Eight of Wands, but also the, I believe it was called the Foyer card from the Medieval and Marvelous Oracle. And I have very much been feeling that this project is an exercise in making and then hopefully wearing the shoes of the Fool. In part because most of the things that I was doing for these shoes I had never done before. And even some of the things that I had done before, I was doing differently for the first time ever. So quick run through of some of those things. There will be more explanation hopefully throughout the rest of this video. I've just pinned my hair back because it's crazy today, and I have no idea what it looks like from the back, so whatever. Anyway, so this is one of the shoes. The last is currently still in it. As I said, I cemented the leather to the soles yesterday, and I have left them curing on the last. It was, as far as I'm aware, dry almost immediately, but I had read in various places that at least 24 hours, if not preferably longer, to allow it to just sort of sit is useful for shoes. So here is the embroidery that I've done on the shoes themselves. Front of the shoe and the back of the shoe. Currently I have just some straight grain satin ribbon as the laces, and I will probably just keep that as my main lacing method. The grommets are a component that I was familiar with. However, I was using a new, different grommet setting tool that was just definitely easier than my previous plastic attachment and then using a mallet to inset grommets, say for example with my corset. So that's definitely an improvement. I had never done quilting before, and I had certainly never made shoes before. And technically I embroidered a teensy-weensy bit in college, but like with zero actual instruction on how to do so. It was just winging it. So this is a situation where you can see that my embroidery is pretty wonky, to be honest. It's hardly the most consistent. The stitch lengths are everywhere. It's the work of a beginner. And I basically just looked up some really, really straightforward stitches that were enough to the right kind of techniques to suit my needs for what I had in mind. And I knew that to a degree, these shoes were going to show the archaeology of my skill, not only because hopefully I'll make shoes again in the future and I'll see the improvements between pairs, but also that I would see the improvement across the shoes. So for example, I've taken the last out of this shoe. This here, let's see, where are we? Actually, it's on this one, isn't it? Yeah. This here is the instep of my right foot. And this is the first side that I did, and you can see that I changed the stitch technique for the leaves because this was all sorts of chaos. And I just left that there because the whole point really is to learn, to show my workings, to show that beginner work is exactly that, that everybody starts with something somewhere. And to the extent that anything ends up being successful or visually pleasing about these shoes, then those are simply techniques that at one time I had also started, and I wouldn't actually classify myself as much more than a beginner at most things here. So yeah, what else do I want to say? I'll take this shoe off the last as well, but and try them on in a minute. But I will also show with this other shoe right now some of the inside of the shoe. So this is the sides on these. Again, I did not go for a uniform pattern. It felt very much like drawing on fabric. But in thread, which I really enjoyed. I kept saying, even as I was messing up, I kept saying, oh, I really like this. You know, this is a fun activity. I think I'm going to get more into embroidery now. But here we go. So I am going to, with each of these shoes, I have one more sort of thing that I want to stitch onto each one. But that's not for public consumption. That has a very overt and much more private magical working capacity and function. So I won't be showing that here, but with the understanding that already these shoes are basically a spell in the works, and that the wearing of the shoes will be sort of carrying with me that foolish potency, the enthusiasm for stepping into and across the void. And I do feel that that was borne out quite a bit in some of my recent interpersonal experiences and emotional experiences and religious experiences in the last few weeks. So that's really, really interesting how that's already been kind of playing itself out and solidifying. I feel very much as though I'm walking in the shoes of the Fool and doing this sort of, maybe not a leap of faith, but certainly taking a step of like blind, well, I guess this is what we're going for kind of feeling, you know, especially on the cusp of the new year. It's very interesting. But like I say, there will be on each shoe an added thing now, added to this once I've done showing any of the footage or taking any photographs, because that's not going to be for public consumption. That's just for me and my magical practice. But at any rate, I can show the shoes now. So you can see that there is a felt sole on the inside. Here's the tongue, which is backed with a black cotton because I was basically out of this other type of scrap fabric that I had. Of any sizes, you know, usable, as far as I'm aware. I'm in desperate need of a reorganize of my fabrics at the moment. And then you can even see like all of the embroidery stitches on the insides of these shoes, as well as the quilting stitches and so on. And there's one or two places where I need to just shore up a stitch or two on this shoe and then a stitch or two on that shoe as well. But basically that's where we're at. The glue, in many ways is, let's see if I can get this to focus. So you can see that in a few places the glue and the stitches with the leather are not the firmest, not the neatest, a bit messy, but hopefully will retain functionality and also hopefully are the sort of thing that's repairable. Again, I guess time will tell, right? This is very much a, I guess, let's try it and see what happens kind of vibe, while also really working through a lot of the things, you know, on that domestic level, like what can we use not only from our chosen ancestors and or cultural ancestors, and I don't mean this on the genetic level, I mean this in terms of the communication of craft and knowledge and skill and ideas and so on. You know, much like a poet choosing as their chosen ancestors other favorite poets or their work. The evidence of the ages, I suppose, and that wider human family. And then walking with a sense of, you know, very Sagittarian fire, I suppose, that sort of Eight of Wands component coming into play here. So all of that amalgamated into this, like, let's take a step into the void together, shall we? So that's what's going on. And yeah, now that the lasts are out here, or one of them is anyway, I'll take the other out. The shoes were built on these lasts, but with the actual tongue kind of portion of the shoe, the upper foot also in place. But for the gluing process, I just used the bottom halves of each last. So I'm going to take the other last out now, and we'll see how these end up fitting. Okay, so forgive the rather thread-covered floor here. I need to hoover. I was doing some of the finishing touches of the embroidery in this room, so there's kind of fibers and threads all over their unfortunately very carpeted floors. Also excuse the modern synthetic fabrics that I'm wearing, because these are just sort of like loungewear things for me, basically pajamas, effectively. Uncorseted skirt layers for the day, just so I can lounge around at home. But here are the finished shoes. Lots of mobility and flexibility, but really a lovely fit. I did try them on preliminarily when they were just fabric soles still, and I was a bit concerned that the shoes would be continually sort of sliding off my feet because of the relatively loose fit towards the back of the heel. But to be honest, now that the leather is on there, while there is still a slidability about that, it doesn't bother me at all. The front of the foot is not shifting, and the shoe places itself back exactly where it needs to be when I put my foot on the ground. So, yeah. Looks like I made myself a pair of shoes. They are very slippy, so there is no grip on them right now. Definitely not outdoor shoes as of yet, but a successful fit and a successful pair, I think.
The pure sound to leaden heads. Some from a breast bends the oak trees, winged wind songs, sung so holy.